shall we, with the story that, is just not going anywhere, and this ongoing problem with hauliers, but visas for them and poultry workers.
Very nice of you to say so. Let me return some of the love. I think you've actually touched most of the bases about this story about lorry drivers and energy and so on this morning. I thought Lembit Opik was absolutely on the ball when he was talking about the just-in-time economy. This is what our economy is based on. If you want to pay cheap prices, then the people supplying those goods to you, including petrol, including food, all those things that we are getting short of because of delivery problems, then if suddenly the taps are turned off, then you will have shortages. So you're going to have panic buying and all that kind of stuff. And, we were talking about this yesterday. We talked about it. I talked about it with a couple of other of your colleagues on Friday morning saying, it's all right saying don't panic buy. As soon as you see panic, people are out queuing. That's the way of the world. Now, so that the actual HGV issue, here's an interesting thing. As I understand it, that low pay is not an issue for the majority of HGV drivers. It's quite simply retirement. They're actually saying enough is enough. Low pay is certainly an issue, but it's not a prime issue. And I was listening with great interest to somebody that you had on Friday morning on your programme, an ex-lorry driver, or soon-to-be retiring lorry driver, wasn't that old actually, but he just went through it all. He said, look, we have to sleep in our cabs. Sometimes we've got to park up overnight and we've got to pay £50 for parking. Now, we get that back from our employers, but we don't get it back straight away. So we've got to wait for that. So everything seems to me to be mitigating against HGV drivers. And as Petru was saying, we've taken these people for granted for too long. So there is this opening for 5,000. Now, as I understand it, the shortage is 100,000. And as both your commentators have already said this morning, this was an issue long before the current crisis. So where are we in all this? I don't know. Are we going to see a flock of HGV drivers coming from the continent? Oh, yes, we want to work in Britain. I just don't think we will. Something needs to happen, I think, that for what it's worth, I think that the large companies will start rationing very briefly. I think people, because we were talking about the weekend and then we talked about Monday morning, we talked about schools and all the rest of it, so I think things will probably die off during the week. I certainly hope they will. They won't be seeing the queues forever. But somebody needs to grab hold of this, and politicians are just dipping into this very, very slightly instead of grasping the nettle and saying this is how we're going to solve it, because we're not going to get an invasion of HGV drivers from Europe because Europe has its own shortages. I mean, this is page one. Should have been done a long time ago.
What I haven't heard is anyone in the industry actually putting their hand up and alluding to what you were saying and saying, right, we're going to change conditions for drivers, right? They don't have to stump up 50 quid to park their vehicle, and they can stay in a hotel overnight. They don't have to sleep in their cab. I don't hear any kind of reform from within the industry, which, and they have to take some responsibility for this as well.
Well, they do. And Prime Minister, amongst others, has said, this is down to businesses themselves to make conditions better for HGV drivers. Sure. And the businesses will say, yeah, OK, so we'll do it, but you've got to pay more for what you actually get. So that means that prices will go up and join this sort of spiralling problem that we have at the moment. We haven't even talked about the energy crisis yet. And quite right as well to look at what's happening in Germany. I mean, this is sensible comment, about what's happening there is the fact that the Russians have literally got their foot on the neck of gas supply through Europe, through Germany, to what we need from it in the UK. This is what's happening in the world. We need to grow up and see these big political problems as being actual. And don't get me started about China. We were going to talk about that yesterday, but that's maybe still to come. But certainly, these problems go far back down the supply chain.
Try and find alternative ways, because renewable simply isn't reliable as a baseline. But that is a whole another subject, which I'm sure we'll get into at another time. But I know that you wanted to talk about the supply crisis and the issue of panic buying, and how one industry expert has warned that it is going to get worse before it gets better.
It probably will, yes, over the next few days. I mean, this may be looking at the next weekend to say what was all the panic about? Well, it was about panic, and panic engenders more panic as well. It's pointless saying people don't queue, don't fill up your tank. Of course they will. Why wouldn't you? You know, if you're seeing queues, you're thinking, well, I've got to last through the week. Unfortunately, cars use petrol, electric's not there, and you quite rightly say, you know, nuclear. I mean, that's a dream. The idea to suddenly get nuclear power stations, and actually they don't. The fact is, it's gas and electricity that keeps this country going rather, and will be for a long time. Because some nuclear stations are being phased out, others are coming in, but you just don't get them overnight. So now, you know, looking at these kind of solutions right now in this kind of short-term way means absolutely nothing, unfortunately.
Hinkley, run by the Chinese, but I know you said not to get you started on that.
What I was going to say, what's this about Nike and Costco warning of product shortages?
Yeah, I don't know whether you've ever
delay description. What is that?
Yeah, so let's do Nike first of all, and that's about trainers, and that's their products coming from where they're made in Vietnam and Indonesia. Those countries have suffered lockdowns as well. Delivery times from Asia to America and to the UK have more or less doubled, as has the price of containers. So that's the trainers done, really. As far as Costco is concerned, I don't know if we've ever been to one, but it's a huge thing. It's a warehouse, basically, subscription only, but you can go as a normal person. You don't have to be part of the trade. But what they're saying is that they're beginning to ration things. Now, this is serious stuff. This is a wholesaler that has a massive call on supplies and so on. They've actually hired, I think, 3 or 4 container ships to make sure that the things that they actually sell keep on coming into the shops. But when a wholesaler like Costco starts to get antsy about supplies, then we should all think about that. It's not going to be a threat. You know, we're looking at everybody. Newspaper headlines talk about Christmas. We were talking about this yesterday, weren't they? Yeah, it's a good headline and the rest of it. It's just another time of the year. Things will settle down. But it's just that what's happening at the moment is this enormous pull immediately on dwindled resources because of all sorts of reasons. Not necessarily to do with Brexit, much more to do with the pandemic, much more to do with people actually working from home. So we haven't had the kind of shelf deep supply that we would normally have. And supermarkets and places, Costco, don't want that because they've got to store the stuff somewhere. So it's all, we started talking this morning about, you know, just in time delivery. That's what it's all about. And that's just not happening at the moment.
Nike warning about panic buying. It could lead to a run on trainers.
Oh, you couldn't resist,
Oh.
did you?
Right, I'm going.
No, I didn't say that.
Taxi for one.
I think we'll take that one.
Right, we'll leave it there, I think. Michael, good to see you. See you again shortly.